Hello, I am Susana Gaviria-Payne, and I am delighted to present Research Snapshot number 7 on behalf of professionals and researchers in early childhood intervention, otherwise known as PRACY. I am in Jajawaran country and acknowledge the traditional custodians of country throughout Australia and their connections to land, sea, and community. I pay my respect to their elders, past and present, and extend that respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples. Today, we're discussing the article, Data Practices in Australian Early Childhood Programs for Children with Additional Needs, authored by Yuriko Kishido and her colleagues Mark Carter and Coral Kemp. In this Research Snapshot presentation, I will go over key points from the article, and then we will have Dr. Kishido discussing the implications for early childhood educators and early childhood education organizations. PRACY selected this article to highlight not only the importance of data collection in early childhood settings for young children with additional needs, but also how different types of data are currently collected by early childhood educators in practice. The vital role of early childhood educators in the inclusion and development of children with additional needs has been known for a while through research on various government reports. We have also known that ongoing data collection is critical in determining the effectiveness of practice and whether program modifications are appropriate or ultimately needed. In this study, the aim was to not only learn about early childhood teachers' perspectives about data collection, but also understand how they use this data for children with additional needs. The authors specifically wanted to explore 5 questions related to, first, the type of data early childhood educators do collect in Australia. Second, differences in the types of data collected for typically developing children and children with additional needs. Third, for children with additional needs, how often and why data are collected. Fourth, the extent to which early childhood educators are confident in their ability to collect data for children with additional needs. And lastly, the barriers to data collection that early childhood educators encounter. Researchers recruited 105 early childhood educators who were involved in developing educational plans in Australian early childhood education and care centres. All early childhood educators, except for one, had a qualification in early childhood, and only 4 respondents reported that they had a qualification in special education. Approximately a quarter of participants had a qualification below bachelor level, and about half of the sample was from New South Wales. Participants responded to an online 24-item questionnaire. In addition to background questions, items included questions about data practice, including type of data collected for children with and without additional needs. Multiple choice questions comprise data types collected for children with and without additional needs, and frequency, purpose, usefulness, and confidence in collecting each data type for all children, particularly children with additional needs. Participants were also asked to rate statements related to perceptions and challenges of data collection. Several key findings are important to note in this study. In terms of supporting children with additional needs, the majority of the respondents had children with additional needs in their group at the time they were completing the survey. The majority of the respondents indicated that they had attended a professional learning course about supporting children with additional needs. In regards to the type of data collected, most respondents collected anecdotal written records, such as journals, photos, and work samples for both children with and without additional needs. For children with additional needs, other data collected included information from families, communication books, medical or specialist reports, individual family service plans, individual education programs, and reported progress towards the individual education program goals and developmental screening questionnaires. There were no significant differences in the types of data collected between children with and without additional needs. While teachers used more frequently counted and timed behaviors and checklist data for children with additional needs, approximately 1/3 of teachers did not collect these data. As for the frequency of data collected, photos and anecdotal written records were the most frequent data type collected, followed by children's work samples. In regards to the use and usefulness of data, progress monitoring was the most frequently reported purpose for data collection across data types, followed by program activity planning. Early childhood educators typically use anecdotal data and photo data for program activity planning for children with additional needs, as well as for daily reporting to parents. More than 3/4 of data collectors perceive that the data they collected are useful for instructional decision-making and program modification for children with additional needs, with some variation in the level of perceived usefulness across data types. Practitioners also reported that they were generally confident in using the data that they collect. Findings of this study can be used in several ways. It raises the importance of practitioners reflecting on their own use of data to determine the extent to which their practices are effective in improving children's outcomes. Given the nature and extent of data reported to be collected by early childhood educators, children with additional needs may require more regular, frequent, and closer monitoring through the collection of both qualitative and quantitative data in order to determine developmental progress and to ensure data-informed program modifications. This study also highlights the need for organizational and expert support for early childhood education and care educators and practitioners in data collection and utilization for children with additional needs. Study findings provide impetus for the consideration of how data is shared across settings and people, thus promoting the effective inclusion of children with additional needs in early childhood settings. We have some useful links to resources on related topics, ranging from the Division of Early Childhood recommended practices on assessment and various other performance tools and checklists for assessment, planning, and instruction. The links to related topics provide further information about the practice of assessment and decision-making in early childhood from the planning and goal-setting perspective. One of the publications on child engagement is by Yuriko Kishido herself, who takes us through the importance of measurement of child engagement. Please stay with us to hear Yuriko Kishido telling us some more about the practice implications of her research for early childhood educators and early childhood intervention practitioners. I would like to welcome Dr. Yuriko Kishido, who is a Research Evaluation Manager, Telethon Speech and Hearing and also Honorary Research Associate at the Telethon Kids Institute. Yuriko is Adjunct Senior Research Fellow at the Curtin School of Allied Health, as well as Honorary Affiliate at the Institute of Special Educators and Honorary Senior Research Fellow at Macquarie University. Thank you for being with us, Yuriko, to discuss the article, Data Practices in Australian Early Childhood Programs for Children with Additional Needs.
Thank you for your invitation.
Yuriko, in your research article, you and your colleagues, Mark Carter and Coral Kemp, revealed two key findings. First, that early childhood educators in your sample mainly collected qualitative data, and also the majority of these educators were confident with the data types they collected. So the second key finding was that only 2/3 of early childhood professionals collected counted or time, behavior, or checklist data. So from your perspective, what are the most important implications of these findings for early childhood practitioners in order to promote recommended inclusion practices and therefore positive outcomes in children with disabilities?
Yeah, it's really encouraging that our study has indicated that most early childhood educators in Australia think using data is beneficial for their teaching practice, and they feel confident using the data that they are collecting. And our study has also suggested, as you said, it's mainly qualitative data, such as anecdotal written record that educators collect and use in their practice. And 1 in 3 educators don't collect quantitative data for children with additional needs. So the most important implication is the need to support educators to use both quantitative and qualitative data so that they can support children's learning and development using data. And because we know both types of data plays an important role in identifying the strength and needs of the child and to help make the best possible decisions about what they teach or how they teach and support the child to achieve their goals. So, for example, if a goal for the child is to participate in a group story time, we may want to know how long the child participates, for example, the duration, which is quantitative data, as well as qualitative information, which could be what the teacher says or what kind of books the teacher is reading or where the child is sitting. So both types of data can help set appropriate individualized goals and decide what adjustment we need to make to support the child's engagement and participation. And data can inform us if the child's goals are achieved. So capacity building for educators and put support in place to facilitate their data use, both quantitative and qualitative, is the most important key takeaway message.
So, Yuriko, what you're saying is that a systematic collection of quantitative data is as much as the qualitative data are both critical to planning and monitoring of children's learning trajectories. And I would like to touch on the last point that you made about capacity building for early childhood educators, and therefore enabling the utilization of this data as described in your study. Could you elaborate on the types of supports and resources that can be put in place for early childhood educators to confidently implement useful data collection?
Yeah, system level support and of course leadership support are critical. And it is really important to promote a culture of data-informed practice. Find someone who wants to be a data practice champion. And, it takes time to build a culture. So be prepared that it is a journey. And about capacity building for educators, it can be through on-site coaching, peer support, and feedback. But it's also very important to provide opportunities in pre-service training to learn about the variety of data gathering techniques. And another key is to involve the frontline practitioners from the beginning in planning the data gathering. For example, what data they are interested or what they can collect, or what tools they think is useful, or how they can implement the way it works for them. And checking how they are going with the implementation of the data collection, or how what support they need, and right through to sharing the outcomes with them. And using graphs when sharing outcomes, I found it really effective. And the teachers often get so excited to see visually how much gains the child has made, or get very engaged and involved when they see, unexpected outcomes. Oh, why is it? So involves them in interpreting data. And then most importantly, celebrate success together. And data can provide concrete evidence to celebrate. And this is my last point. That is to start small. So that way it's achievable. And that achievement then build confidence to take on bigger projects.
Well, thank you, Yuriko, for your article and your reflections, highlighting the importance of not only data collection per se in early childhood settings, but also the kinds of things that can be put in place to strengthen data collection strategies that are going to be useful in goal setting, instructional planning, and monitoring of outcomes in children with additional needs. Thank you so much, Yuriko. We really appreciate it.
It's my pleasure. Thank you for this opportunity.
Here is some information about the researchers who authored this article and who have been conducting extensive research on the topic of assessment and instruction in early childhood education and early childhood intervention. If you wish to correspond with the authors of this article, please contact Yuriko at her email address. Thank you for listening to this research snapshot. We hope you find it useful for your practice and or your research. I encourage you to go to the Prezi website, where you will find some more research snapshots discussing issues related to your work. And keep tuned for future research snapshots.